What's cracking YouTube? It's your boy Matty B. Welcome back to the channel, and as always, thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I've had to skip a couple of these post-race reports, but I was finally home on a Saturday. Nothing better to do but to watch 4 hours of pro motocross from round 7 at Spring Creek in Millville, Minnesota. And it was a banger. I love the great outdoors. We had the Battle of the Brothers in the 450 class, and God, those guys are getting so good. Seems like we got two mutants now. And then in the 250 class, we had a moto win from an absolute legend in the final moto of his career at his home track, as well as a rebound overall win from Hayden DEEGAN, some puzzling performances from Eli Tomac and Jorge Prado, and we'll get into that and a whole lot more, but before I do, gotta give a huge thank you to my channel sponsors. Thank you to Sirius Studio, and thank you to ASV Inventions. Check my description for more info and discount codes, and remember, if you're supporting them, you're supporting me. And one last order of business before I start. It's so funny in the comments. I got people complaining about how I talk, like all the time now. One week, I'm monotone and boring. The next week, people are complaining about the complete opposite thing. I even had somebody the other day tell me that it sounds like I'm trying to sing, but I'm tone deaf, which I actually thought was really funny. But yeah, I guess I'm just going to keep talking however I feel like talking because people complain no matter what. But by all means, please feel free to keep on complaining. I love the engagement. Honestly, a lot of the comments kind of crack me up, and just do as you please. I can handle it. First of all, we'll start with some thoughts on the track. Millville is badass. Gnarly elevation, sand whoops, tons of fun jumps. I feel like it used to have a lot better of a flow. They've made quite a few track changes over the last several years that, just in my opinion, have kind of made it worse, but whether the track is better or worse, that's super subjective, and that's just my opinion, but I felt like it was a lot more opened up and flowed better in past years, and even one example, that section before the finish line, they kind of tightened it up for this year, and I just can't really see how it would possibly be better for racing. If anything, it just tightened it up and made it even more one-lined. But it's a sick track. Mount Martin is the scariest, gnarliest hill I've ever gone up and down. Honestly, it kind of makes Glen Helen seem mild. But it got rough, it got choppy, and it looked brutal. I was not upset that I wasn't out there, and that surface looked incredibly tricky. Millville's kind of known for being a sand track, but really, there's only a few sections that are actually sandy, like the sand whoops. A lot of it actually has a hard base and gets some edges, so I can only assume tire choice was a pretty tough choice and a big discussion today. And speaking of tires, after last weekend with the Jordan Smith slide out up the face of the tabletop at Redbud and almost crashing into the people in the infield, I've seen a lot of talk about people wanting to ban paddle tires and scoop tires, and are you guys kidding me? Like, come on. People have crashed and slid out way before paddle tires, and at the end of the day, I think it's on the riders to know what tire they're using, and Jordan Smith's my boy, love him to death, but my guy's gotten loose long before scoop tires, so I've had crashes where I could have blamed it on the scoop tire, but at the end of the day, it's my fault. I knew what tire was on my bike, and you haven't even heard Jordan complaining about it, saying, oh, you need to blame the scoop or anything like that. But to all these people saying ban the scoop just because of one incident seems kind of silly. I actually think tire choice and actually having a choice between scoop and a standard is a pretty cool dynamic in racing because, let's be real, apart from scoop or standard, there's really no variation in tire choice in the sport, so I say we leave it alone. Now to dive into the results, we'll start with the 250 class with the win, a rebound, and a 1-2 moto score out of Hayden DEEGAN for the overall win. And this dude's got the dog in him. We all saw the bruising on his leg. I think we all saw the crazy TikTok bender, but none of that matters. Once the gate drops, the bullshit stops, and the kid is on it. He may have lucked out a little bit in Moto 2 with Shimoda, who looked to have a rear brake issue. I think he might have been going with the wind and probably had an overall win, but that's racing. It happens, and DEEGAN was able to pick up the pieces and gain more points in the standings and grab another overall win. Second overall, this was the feel-good story of the millennium, Jeremy Martin. Both hole shots, the Millville crowd absolutely blew the non-existent roof off the place, and it was so cool to watch. Even the commentators, they were kind of just letting the race speak for itself, listening to the fan noise, all the air horns. It had to have been an unreal atmosphere, and what a storybook ending to Jeremy Martin's career. Like JT said on the podium, you don't usually get to go out like that. Not only did he get to go out on his own terms, but he got to go out as a winner. Didn't quite snag the overall, but from what I was hearing on the way in, people were just hoping he would maybe get a top 10. So to go 3-1 after weed whacking the hills of Millville and after an unbelievable career, tons of injuries, setbacks, and everything in between, that was a badass way to end it. And I'm stoked Jeremy Martin got to spend one more time on the podium and didn't get hurt because that was my big thing. The dude's been through it, and I just wanted to see him healthy. A third overall for Joe Shimoda. I'm thinking this was the one that got away. Awesome first moto, got passed by DEEGAN, but then called him back. made the move, but wasn't quite decisive enough. After making the move, I think he needed to sprint away just a little bit faster, gave Deegs just a little bit of hope, and he made the move back around him. But still, really cool to see Joe take the fight to Deegan, and I'm actually surprised. I swore Joe jumped on some red lights in that first moto, but I don't see a penalty, so if you're getting away with it, I guess it ain't cheating. And then, of course, he had that bummer in the second moto, but still an overwhelmingly positive outdoor season for Joe Shimoda, still second in points, and that gap between he and the rest is growing by the weekend. Supposedly, we've re-signed with Honda, and everything is looking good for the future of Sushi. Fourth for Mikkel Harup on the Triumph, a 4 and a 3. A little bit of a bummer to go 4-3 and not get a podium, but at this point, I kind of got to think it's coming. The dude's been getting better and better by the weekend, still adjusting to the American series, American format, and most importantly, the crappy American food like I'm probably about to go get right after this video. But a very strong day for the Dane, and I'll be very surprised if he doesn't lock down a podium before this series is over. Quiet fifth for Marchbanks with a 7-7. Stop me if you've heard this before, but I think he got some bad starts and made about 1 billion passes today. Sixth for Levi Kitchen. He's got to be bummed after going 1-1 at this track last year, but a 13th in the first moto, that kind of killed all the momentum he could have had, then was only able to muster a 6th place in Moto 2, so a pretty up and down season for Levi Kitchen, but coming in hurt after that big crash at Daytona. Kind of had to think maybe the base wasn't going to be like he had last year, and maybe there was going to be some rust while getting back into it. This dude is quietly putting in killer rides, a 7th overall for Dylan Schwartz with an 11-9, and the dude is just such a grinder, never gets great starts, usually not up front in qualifying, but he also never gets tired. He's always making moves till the end, and he's somebody that I think if they gave him a factory ride, he would be a serious threat outdoors, at least for the top 5. I think it's just Supercross that we struggle with, and I think that's why he probably isn't getting looked at by any of the top teams. This one's heartwarming, an 8th overall for Austin Faulkner. Kind of surprised I'm saying that about Faulkner getting an 8th, but this has been a horrible year for Austin Faulkner. Bike troubles, bad results, crashes, and everything in between. So to go 9-11 and get an 8th overall, that's some momentum if I've ever seen it, because every time I've seen him in the order during outdoors, he's been around 20th or maybe even further back. And we got to take baby steps here. I mean, the guy's brain was on the table. Brain surgery is no joke, and I think this could at least just be the result that jumpstarts a little bit of momentum into Faulkner's program, and I think that's all he needs. Because let's be real, the talent doesn't go away. He's always had it. I think it's just something upstairs. And then more triumphs in 9th and 10th with Jalik Swoll and Jordan Smith. A bummer for Michael Mosman to be 11th overall with a 5.18. He was actually looking like he had a chance to take a stab at that moto win in the first 250 moto, but I think he had a late moto crash, and then second moto, not sure what happened, but a bad result. And ultimately that led to a lackluster overall, but he's another one. He has been an absolute revelation during this outdoor season. He's proven himself week in and week out, and I really hope Star re-signs him, because the dude had a broken neck like 2 years ago. It's been a long road back, and I think the momentum is pushing him right where he needs to be. A 12th for the rookie of Avery Long, a 14-12. He's from Minnesota, so this was a home race for him, but still very solid results. He had a good second moto at Redbud last weekend as well. Bummer for Tom Vial to be 14th overall after a DNF in Moto 2, and he has actually had quite the up and down outdoor season this year, and I even kind of hypothesized before the season started that maybe he's not quite as consistent as we've been thinking. Outdoors, he's really actually had a handful of issues, even last year. And then a 15th for Parker Ross. He's another rookie on the Bar X squad that has been very silently effective all year. Never gets tired, just like his teammate Schwartz. He's had a handful of top 10s. I think a lot of these tracks are places that he's going for the first time, so big ups to Parker Ross. Last but not least, bummer for Seth Hamaker. 2 DNFs after leading laps in Moto 1. I think he went to uphill Indonesia, which is kind of impressive, but then came back out for the second moto and another DNF. You'll have those kind of days on the bigger jobs. Now on to the 450 class with the win, a 2 and a 1, Jett Lawrence. Honestly, pretty nice of him to do these first lap tip overs just to give us something to watch. And I even kind of thought he was going to still get that first moto win, but Hunta was on another level compared to what he usually is today. And I don't really know what more we can say about Jett. I mean, he just blisters his way through the field anytime he has to, and even that is pretty rare. Nobody ever seems to hold him up. He's always doing stuff different out there. And I think Adam Cianciarillo said it best. I think we're in for a long decade. Second for Hunta, and in my opinion, that was Hunter's best riding I've ever seen out of any pro motocross race, 250 or 450 throughout his whole career. First moto was absolutely dominant. By the time Jett got into second, he was already like 10 seconds out. Didn't even really give Jett the chance to smell blood in the water. And then the second moto, man, I almost felt bad for the dude because you could tell he was pushing even harder than he usually does, throwing the kitchen sink at it, and it just wasn't quite enough. But still, a 1-2 on the day, and now he has clearly solidified himself in second place in points. What a season for these guys. Now I think we have two mutants on the gate. A distant 3-3 and a third overall for Chase Sexton. He cannot be happy about the day. I know he's been off for a while and it's only his second race back, but this dude doesn't line up just to go get third and get beat by 30, 40 seconds. He wants to be in the battle. He's not satisfied. And I know Washougal is a really good track for him, so I hope we see some flashes of brilliance out of him next weekend. But then we got a few weeks break after Washougal, and I foresee some serious testing and grinding going down because that dude does not want to see Jett Lawrence run the table and take all this momentum into SMX. 4-4, consistent fourth overall for RJ Hampshire. And me and Top Chick were actually just watching the second moto, one of the first races she's watched all year, and she actually said, hell, maybe RJ just needed some more power. And I think that's actually what it is. RJ just had to ride the absolute tits out of that 250F, and that made him get sketchier than kindergarten artwork from time to time. But this 450, it's kind of mellowed him out. He's got plenty of power right where he needs it and when he needs it. And he, in my opinion, has really overperformed in this 450 class in Pro Motocross. 5th for Barsha and a 6th for Mookie, 8-7 and a 7-8. Good to see Justin Barsha back in the top 5 because it's been a pretty rough run for him all year, but a good day, a little flash of brilliance, and then same with Malcolm Stewart. I actually think he looked better than his result was on paper. Super aggressive. I mean, he even blew the doors off George Prado in the first moto. Here's probably the most confusing ride of the day. 7th overall and a 6-9. That was not fine out of Eli Tomac. And this was one of those tracks I thought was actually going to be really good for him. I have memories from 2022 of him and Chase Sexton just decimating the field, beating everybody by like a minute, but a 6-9 way back in the distance, battling with Cody Schock and the boys. No offense to any of them, but he's Eli Tomac. I thought he'd be on the box. And the season, unfortunately, has kind of been trending the wrong way for Eli Tomac. Started out sick, and I kind of thought he would get better, just being that he was coming into the season with an injury, but his first few rounds were actually his best. Now we're in a little bit of a hole, and I hope he comes out of it because the sport's better when ET is on that rev limiter, standing up on the pegs around the outsides and battling for wins. Awesome day for Valentin Guillot, 8th overall and a 10-6, and he's one of these guys who's vying for a Super Motocross World Championship playoff spot. Top 20, get the direct transfer, and rides like this are going to get him in there. He wants to do it. Hybrid tracks, and he's a Swiss guy, so he said, no whoops, I'm good, sign me up. 9th for Jorge Prado, and I hate to say this, but in my eyes, the USA hype for Jorge Prado is officially over. That first moto, I don't even know what I was watching. Like, it didn't even look like he was trying. I'm all for, riding within yourself if your setup's not good and this and that, but it seemed like he kind of took that to the extreme in Moto 1. I mean, he was just cruising, kind of letting people by, and if you look at his lap times, his fades kind of look like mine on my two-stroke when I was getting like 35th. The Moto 2 was better, at least he got a 5th, and obviously the dude has not just became a 10th place rider or an 8th place rider. He's a multi-time world champion. He's got more bike skill than almost anybody I've ever seen. The dude just hasn't been using it. I don't know if it's the tracks here in the USA, the format, the Kawasaki, or all the above, but Jorge and this USA series, both Supercross and Motocross, this whole experiment has not been going well so far, and I really hope it turns around because I was so excited for Jorge Prado to match up with the top guys over here, and we have not seen it. J. Coop rounds out the top 10 after absolutely doming himself in qualifying practice, but with that top 10, he also vaults himself up to the number 1 seed in the Super Motocross Playoff Championship standings. Strong 11th for Cody Schock with a 9-11, and then an awesome ride, awesome day out of Lorenzo Lucurcio, 11-12 for 12th overall on the Wildcat ride. Bummer day for Antonio Cairoli on the Ducati. Early crash in Moto 1, was only able to make it back to 23rd, but then he nabbed himself a top 10 in Moto 2, and it's so cool to see a damn 40-year-old on a brand new bike, still able to go out there and get top 10s. What a badass. And the last guy to talk about in the 450 class, massive bummer for our guy AP, DNF, blood test on Monday, and he's going to try to figure out what's going on. He's got no energy, we might even be at the Epstein Bar National, and I've been there myself, guys, this is no joke. Fatigue illnesses are real, and our series is too damn long, 31 races across like 10 months, so what do you expect? You can only tax the body, but so much, but get well soon, AP. But that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you all for tuning in, and as always, let me know in the comments if you agree, disagree, want to hate on my takes, or just think I'm cooked, or if you even want to keep complaining about my voice, I'm here for all of it. Doesn't bother me. Washougal up next. Can't wait for it. Super scenic, badass track. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys next time.